Hi, and welcome to another installment of Math Basics with Mr. Besh. Today we're going to talk range, domain, and functions. Here's an example problem from Algebra 1. It also parallels our Pennsylvania State Keystone test here. And what it's asking is, it's giving you a graph with a picture. Now what happens is there's a ray here, and it's asking a little something about this function. Now, what I've done is I have 3 key points of interest that I've color-coded with arrows that we need to talk about first. Now, my function here on my graph is a ray. Everybody should know what a ray is. And my first key point of interest is the red arrow. If you look at my red arrow, it's pointing to the arrow on the ray. Now, we know about the x-axis and we know about the y-axis, and these are our number lines. That arrow is telling me that my function is going to continuously go diagonally up from left to right. And what that's going to do is, if we magnified or zoomed in, it would keep our x number line would keep growing to the right, and my y number line would continuously grow going up. So now the values would keep getting bigger over and over and over again. The second key point of interest is the green arrow. Notice that that is where my ray starts, and that has a value on my coordinate plane where x is 0 and y is -2, and that's going to be very important. The third key piece of information here, or note, is my purple arrow. My purple arrow is pointing to the inequality greater than or equal to. Remember, when you have an inequality, you got to pay very close attention to this. And if it has a bar underneath it, that means you also include the value that you're talking about. Lastly, on this page, you'll notice that I underlined the word unrestricted because that is where we start this example. Unrestricted means, when it says the domain is unrestricted, means the domain can be any possible value. Now, the domain is all possible x values. The word range means all possible y values. So the first here possible answer says the domain is unrestricted, meaning the domain can be anything. Translated, my ray has every x value. And take a look at my graph. No, it doesn't. My graph, my ray doesn't have one x value being negative. Not one. It starts at 0. And then if you follow my ray in my picture here, because it starts down here at 0, then it goes to 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and so on and so on. So since the lowest value of x is 0, that's where my function starts. So as a result, it's not unrestricted. We cross that out from our answer list. The second part says the domain is x is less than or equal to -2. Well, take a look. Impossible. X isn't less than 0. X starts at 0. There's nothing down here on my graph. So now because of this, the domain can't possibly be x is less than or equal to -2. Now it starts talking a little bit about my range. Now going back to my original point value where everything starts, the y value is -2. That is the lowest point on the y-axis. And then as you can see, as my ray increases, it goes to -1, and the y value here goes to 0 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So now C says the range, which is all possible y values, is less than or equal to 2. Well, that's false. There are no y values down here in my picture on my function. So as a result, this is also incorrect. And last but not least, by default, it says the range is y is greater than or equal to -2, which is my answer. And if we went back to my picture, if you look at this, because the y value has to be greater than or equal to -2, remember, your range is all your possible y values, and that's what's happening here. Here's -2, and here is -1, and 0, and 1, so this satisfies that criteria. Remember, when they talk about domain, they're talking about all the possible, x values that you have in your function. And when you talk about your range, you're talking about all your y values in your function. I hope you found this video both helpful and informative.